Hi everyone, my name is Vasco Asturiano from the RIPENCC. I'm one of the developers in the RIPEstat team, and I'd like to run you through some of the major improvements to RIPEstat since our last public presentation. After showing some of these new features, this video will also include a demo section and a quick preview of the things to come. To begin, a brief introduction on RIPEstat. RIPEstat is a web-based toolbox for internet-related data, and it's meant to serve as a single point of entry for troubleshooting, measuring, and analyzing network-related information. It's built in a modular fashion via widgets and a data API, which means that you can easily port the visualization you see to your own website or access the data sources directly in a scriptable manner. The central point of access is stat.ripe.net, where you can find all the new features as well as documentation on how to use the data and widget APIs. It is in constant development and being expanded with the most relevant and requested new tools and features, in large part based on user feedback. So your voice is important in this process. We urge you to get involved and get in contact with us, and there's a high chance you'll see your desired RIPEstat feature or idea implemented in an upcoming version. Periodically, we also report the progress of feature additions and improvements back to the internet community via online videos such as this one and presentations at relevant events like RIPE meetings. So what is new since last time? The RIPEstat widgets now have an option to display a resource bar to allow further navigation within the widget to other resources without needing to refresh the containing page. This is currently used in the view of permalink results on the RIPEstat website, but can actually be enabled in any embedded widget by means of the show controls flag in the embedding code as is shown here. The info section of the widgets, which includes inline documentation on the specific functionality of the widget, has also been reformatted and improved to be more informative. It's also now pulled asynchronously from the RIPEstat servers to prevent unnecessary initial loading. Another addition to the widgets is a report area that indicates the time range of the data that's represented, as well as which resource. This is persistent for every widget and is meant to clearly indicate which specific boundaries the visualized data corresponds to. Also, since last time, we have finished converting all the remaining RIPEstat views to widgets. This basically marks the end of a migration phase so that every toolbox of information about a resource that's present on the RIPEstat website now follows the widget and data API model. This means it can potentially be embedded into any website you wish, and it has its own data call which can be used separately in a programmatical way. Besides all this, we've also been working on some improvements to the backend query systems, which results in an increased performance and reliability of the widgets. Concerning the address space hierarchy widget, which represents the hierarchy of IP resources present in the WHOIS database in a modular and visual relational way, a few features were added since the previous iteration. Besides some improvements to the diagram rendering, one of the new features is the CIDR navigator, or in short CIDR nav. This allows you to navigate freely in the CIDR address space tree by means of an arrow controller, as is indicated here in this image. Another feature is the highlighting of address block status so that it's easier to identify where the blocks of a certain status are in the address range. Another usability improvement is the visual aggregation of very small address blocks, which facilitates the visualization and navigation on very dense address space areas. Further, this visualization is now not only limited to information in the RIPE WHOIS database, but includes an option to display information from the point of view of the APNIC WHOIS. Like this, it shows more appropriate results when browsing through address blocks that belong in the APNIC region. This may mark the beginning of an effort to extend the widget actually further to other address space registry sources. We'll see these features in action a little later on this video. Another widget improvement was done on the WHOIS object browser widget. It used to present WHOIS registration data based on daily database dumps, so the information displayed could be out of sync and show a few hours outdated scenario. This has been changed, and now the data is pulled live from the WHOIS servers, and therefore the objects are represented with its actual and real-time state. Also, a new widget was created as part of the World IPv6 launch event, which took place last June. This widget allows you to observe the forward DNS entries a domain name resolves to, as it's viewed by the RIPENCC name servers. If only IPv4 or IPv6 is available for a given domain, this is indicated by the widget. As part of the event, this widget actually saw some broad embedding usage across several sites, one of them being the RIPENCC v6 launch measurements page. You actually also saw this in the RIPEstat main page for the period around the World v6 launch day. Besides all this, we also recently released a new version of the iOS mobile application. This version covered some important updates and bug fixes, and also the WHOIS Object Browser plugin was also added. One of the important updates was that all the data connections were migrated to use the new RIPEstat data API structure. This was done in order to ensure consistency with the web-based widgets. So because of this, we actually urge you to run the app update on your iPhone or iPad if you haven't done so yet. The previous data connection format will be unsupported in the near future, and so previous versions of the app will actually no longer work from that point on. This is currently estimated to probably be mid-August of this year. So if you don't have the app yet on your iOS device, this is actually the perfect time to install it. You can find it in the App Store or by following the /mobile URL that's shown here. We're also looking for feedback on it regarding which further plugins you would like to have in future versions. So please try it and let us know what you think. There's going to be some more about the mobile app a little later on. And now for a brief demo of some of these features. So if we go to stat.ripe.net and then let's say we want to load it for one of our prefixes. Let's try this one. You can see here already the overview of all the widgets that are presented. And let's say we want to focus on the address space hierarchy. So let's try to open this window just for this widget. Here you see just this widget displayed. So here we see the object that we queried for as is in the WHOIS database. That's our exact match. Above we have the parent block where it comes from. It's one of the RIPENCC registered blocks. And below we see the more specifics. In this case there's 8 assignments underneath. So to make an example of what the site navigation can do, if we would like to see what is the adjacent neighbor to the left side of this block, we can just click here in the left arrow and it's going to take us to the /15, which is the left neighbor of this one. And let's see what this does. So we can see that the left neighbor is actually another block, which is an allocated PI block, which has other more specific assignments underneath, and we can travel back to where we were, even go a little bit further to the right side, and here we see that there's actually 2 allocated PA assignments objects underneath this, which are /16s. If we go back to our object, something else we can do is we can let's imagine that we want to see like this area here, just this first half to see more in detail. So we can click the arrow that goes to the /16 and that will move it towards, you can see here it's 50% of the block we were looking at, and the assignments underneath will be more visible, and we can even go further. This will be already at 25%, so /17 and we can go to the /18, which is on this half. So we can step by step approach a certain view of the address range. So at any point we can jump into one of these blocks, or jump back into the parent block, and from here we can also travel up. So we are at watching a /15. We can jump up for the /14, which will show you an overview of what is under this. So I can go even a bit further. You see that our original object was actually here, and we can even go one step further. And our original object was actually here. So you get to see an overview of the context where this block is compared to its neighbors. Can also jump to the parent range. And here also something that we start seeing happening is that there is some aggregation going on. Now this aggregation happens when the size ratio of a more specific block is too small compared with the parent one. So these blocks here, they have like more specific assignments that are too small to represent, so they are being shown as just one aggregated block. And when this happens, they are marked with these diagonal stripes. So when you see a block that's marked like this, you know that there's like smaller assignments that are not visible. One thing that you can see is if the type of the aggregated block has just one status, then that aggregated block is marked with the color of that status. But if that block has several status, then it's marked as gray, which represents that there's multiple status underneath that range. And you can use the highlight to see for each block what is the status that it contains. So if we take this gray one, we can see that it has allocated PA objects and allocated PI objects. So you can also see the highlighting feature to see where the certain objects of a certain status are in the range that's being displayed. So for example here we see that there are objects with assigned PI status, but we don't know exactly where they are. So if we highlight this part, we can see the exact blocks where there's object with this status. So for example, if we go to one of these, we know that there's assigned PI underneath, and we can click on it and it will render for that block. Now obviously the exact match does not exist because this was one aggregated block that was done artificially, but it will show you the more specifics that were being aggregated underneath that range. So once again we can use the highlight to show where objects of a certain type are located. So if we see here, we can highlight all the objects of type allocated PA. Now we can, if we go back to our parent object, and then we can even move further into the 0/0, so basically all the address space. One thing to notice is that, of course, here you cannot navigate upwards anymore because we're already at top level. So one of the things that hovering over a certain aggregated block also tells us is how many blocks are under that and how much free space that there is in that aggregated block. So here it tells us that there's 5 blocks, and that occupies only 50% of the whole range from that certain block. So if we render for that, we're gonna see that there's some space free. So not all of it is being used. Now if we go back to our 0/0, the other feature we mentioned is that we can render this and see how does this look like from the perspective of the apinic who is. So if we change the mode to go to apinic, we'll see a different perspective, and then we can navigate further as we did for the RIPENCC scenario. So if we go into one of these blocks, we can go further, etc. It uses the same logic of navigation. So we can see also the aggregated blocks, etc. and move up or move down if we wish to do so. Now this works also for v6 space, obviously. So if we take a look at 2001/16 for v6, it shows us these are the blocks that are allocated by the pinnick, and if we move back to the source of the RIPENCC, we see the same block how it is seen from the RIPENCC's database. And as you can see, it shows you a kind of like contrasting view of which objects are available from which database. You can keep drilling down further until you reach the address space perspective that you're interested in. So let's say you can keep drilling down here. So as you can see, this can be quite a powerful tool to understand the registration hierarchy of a certain range of address space. Now let's have a quick look also at our new mobile application version. Let's start this here. So this is the new version of the mobile application that was just released recently. It's version 1.5.0, as you can see here. Let us load the application for this prefix here, which is the network that I'm currently in. And what you saw happening was that all the plugins were loading data using the new RIPEstat data API. So as soon as all the required data was received, the plugin started showing the ready status, which means that they're ready to be rendered, which means that all the data has already been received. So these are the list of plugins that are available for prefixes. You can check the address space usage or the BGP update activity. This is represented in a similar fashion as to what is presented in the RIPEstat website. You can also check the geolocation. So you can see it's quite accurate. I am in Amsterdam at the moment, so we can also load it for an AS number. So let us try this one. You can see the resource information, whatever is present in whois, the S path length, etc. As mentioned before, one of the new plugins that was added was the whois object browser, which was not there in the previous version of the application. So this works similar to what is present in the RIPEstat website as a widget, and the information is pulled live from the whois database, and you can navigate it in a similar way. Here on the right side it shows the objects that are referenced from our main object, which is the auth_num object, and on the left side it shows all the objects that refer to this object. So I can navigate further into, let's say, the organization object, and it shows you the view from that perspective. So from here I can navigate to a different AS number, etc. So this works very similar to what's present in the RIPEstat website. Okay, so back to our presentation. What things do we have in the pipeline? One thing that was already mentioned is that due to finishing the conversion of all the RIPEstat views to widgets, and also the upgrade of the mobile application to strictly use the new data API, the serving of the old data calls will be deprecated. The switch off is estimated for half August. The /plugin URLs represent the connection towards the new RIPEstat data API, and every piece of code should actually be using this URL to access RIPEstat data as a sole point of entry. If you have any scripts that still access the old API, which is represented by the /data in the URL, we highly encourage you to migrate towards the new data API, because soon they will actually no longer work. You can find the documentation for the new data API through stat.ripe.net. Soon it will also be possible to give feedback per widget in a more direct and intuitive manner. Each widget will contain a section that can optionally be disabled while you're embedding it, in which you can more accurately tell us in a structured way how is your experience with them, as well as offer suggestions for further improvements. This will help us better understand your demands and to better tailor the data and its representation to your needs. So as soon as it's available, please use it and abuse it as means to let us know your thoughts. A new widget that we have in the works is a representation of the distribution of prefix sizes as are listed in the RIPestat files. These files are published daily by each regional registry, and it indicates all their address space allocations. So the aim here is to facilitate the decision on the configuration of prefix size filters in routing devices. This would be done by knowing the ratio of how much address space would be filtered out if a certain prefix size threshold is used. Another item, we have an option for implementation in the address space hierarchy widget is to use the knowledge of which address range belongs to which RAR to automatically show the blocks on location from the officially designated RAR database. This can be particularly useful for ranges which include address space registered across several registries. So we can display the objects side by side in a transparent way, so you actually don't have to worry about which source a certain range is registered in. This would be done on a best effort basis using a kind of combined mode as shown here, even though the modes to select a specific source would still be available, allowing you to override this layer of intelligence. As mentioned before, we also want your feedback on possible improvements for the mobile application and which new plugins would you find useful to see added to the list here. So if you have a certain wish, please speak up. We're also doing some work on the resiliency of our application database and eliminating all single points of failure. So this in order to minimize and make more smooth to the users the possibility of a RIPEstat database unavailability. Okay, so a final word on how you can get in touch with us. Please play with all the new features and don't hesitate in getting in contact with us through any of the channels mentioned here. You can do it either publicly via the comment section on our website or through the Measurement, Analysis and Tools Working Group. Or you can also send us your feedback privately using the upcoming in-widget feedback form or just write us an email. So that was it for this time. The next session will happen during the RIPE65 meeting. That's going to take place in Amsterdam from the 24th till the 28th of September, where you can also meet the RIPEstat developers in person and ask all your questions face to face. You can find an article of this session archived on RIPE Labs, where you can also find links to the previous RIPEstat recordings. So for now, thanks for watching this RIPEstat demo session, and I hope to see you next time.